Hi parents, Dr. Tony checking in, and it's another Wednesday whiteboard session for you. So we're going to jump over to my best teaching nerd friend here in a second, the whiteboard, and we're going to talk about the two categories, as we call them, of kids that we commonly see in the practice that fit under what we often call this kick the sick category. Our practice really splits down to three groups of kids that we are blessed to serve. We have our healthy wellness kiddos, so they don't have any symptoms, they don't have any conditions, they don't have any struggles, and are just really living that healthy life. The second group happens kind of a lot of times, it begins these two cases in the birth to 3 years old. That's our kick the sick kids. They're constantly congested, they're constantly stuffed up, they're constantly constipated, refluxy, stomach pain, colicky, and since that congestion and that illness is always kind of, even just hanging a little bit below the board, anytime they pick up a cold or the weather changes or teething happens, boom, it's another infection, it's another challenge. And then the third group of kids is the perfect storm. That's sensory and all of those challenges that we see. So with today's whiteboard session, we're really, actually pause, we'll go back to that. What we do with our practice is we work with those second two groups of kids and families to get them to restore, reboot, and heal their way back to the first category, right? So our practice may begin with, and it splits about in thirds, as new patients, they kind of come in these three different categories. But the goal, and actually we're going to talk about that here today on the whiteboard in a really basic, easy to understand way. If you do have your kiddo as a kick the sick kiddo or a perfect storm kiddo, see, perfect storm kiddos, they usually have this too. Almost every ADHD sensory spectrum kiddo has a bunch of gut stuff and has a bunch of immune stuff. So we're talking about that here too. And the goal is to get those two categories of kids who are struggling with stuff to the first category, right? To become healthy and well, to heal naturally without drugs through their body's innate healing, rocking, nervous system, immune system, digestive system, get those systems back online so they too can live that first group life, which is healthy, vibrant, and kicking butt. So as per usual, when you're working with me on these things, we're gonna talk neurology and physiology and immunology here in this quick little 10-minute video, but we're gonna do it in 5th grade farmer from Iowa language, okay? So you can see here on the board, we have our two trusty categories. We have nicknamed these kiddos as poor plumbers and poor poopers, right? Meaning using two words we're all very familiar with. Seems like the internet, our Facebook videos, people really love it when we talk about poop. So I'm bringing poop and boogers into the conversation. There's my artistic skills. You get those along with today's video. Here's my poop emoji, but it's not your regular poop emoji. It's a poop emoji struggling to poop. So he's got kind of the yikes emoji. Do you know if you type yikes in, you get that gritted teeth guy? So if the gritted teeth emoji and the poop emoji got together, boom, that's him. And then those are boogers. That's as far as I can go in my artistic capacities to describe a chronically sick, congested kiddo or person. So in these categories, they come with diagnoses on the medical side of the fence. So you got allergies, you got asthma, you got RSV, you got croup. So all of the respiratory stuff sits here, and all of the digestive stuff, the colic, the constipation. Actually, eczema sits within poor poopers, because if your babies and kiddos are having skin issues, that's a sign of the internal skin, the gut and the intestines are not getting the not good things out in the effective manner as God designed our neurophysiological plumbing pooping system. If it can't get out into the porcelain exit, it comes out in the second skin as rash and eczema and those things. So we're talking about all the things here in this video with poor plumbers and poor poopers. So first off, what we know is that when our kiddos have these challenges with chronic congestion and chronic colds and illness, and then maybe that goes over into asthma and allergies as we go, or when they have these chronic digestive issues, the first thing that traditional medicine will often do is throw some medications at it, right? And there's kind of two layers of that. You may start with over-the-counter medications, the Mucinex, the Claritins, I don't know, there's a bunch of them, right? You go to you go to the pharmacy aisle, and there's just a zillions of things there. And as parents, you've probably been stuck in that stinking aisle, right? Like, hey, that one hasn't been working, let's try that one. My neighbor And maybe you started there because that's how we're all trained, right? Like we think that when an illness, when congestion or these things show up, that medicine is going to get in there and do the job. That's just how we're trained as parents. It's changing with this generation of parents. And if you're watching this video, you're probably really looking for a change. So you go from over the counter, and then maybe that doesn't do the job. So you keep ending back up at the pediatrician's office. My kid just keeps getting sick, chronic ear infections, chronic croup, chronic, chest infections, or we just can't get them to poop. We can't get them to find relief. And maybe you get Miralax or you get those sort of things. And what we find for most families when we meet them, they've already exhausted those two things. Not only are they not working, but they don't really have pleasant side effects. The last medication category to talk about with the poor plumbers, if it really gets bad and that congestion and those breathing difficulties really get locked in for your kiddo, they may prescribe steroid-based medications, inhalers and nebulizers and those sort of things. That is our segue into the perfect storm world. Really what we see is that these kiddos birth to 3, they don't grow out of the poor plumber and the poor pooper. They tend to grow into neurosensory, behavioral, emotional, focus, regulation challenges because of 2 reasons. Number one, kind of merging this whole board here as we go. Number one, the real most common underlying contributor to both of these issues is actually not the gut. It's not gluten. It's not an inflammatory cascade in and of itself. It's a neurological tension cascade. It's that sympathetic nervous system, which we talk about in almost all of our videos. It's that fight or flight stress system that gets activated through what we call this perfect storm pathway, with a lot of stress during pregnancy, maybe some intervention this is a huge one. Intervention at birth, C-section, whether scheduled or emergency, induction, vacuum, forceps, manual assistance. We see a high correlation between birth intervention, then jamming up the nervous system, jamming up the neck, jamming up the mechanics of lymphatic drainage, jamming up the mechanics, if you will, of draining the ears and the throat and lymphatics. Our body, that's why we call it poor plumber. It's, yes, we can get into IgA and IgE and IgG, and we can do the whole cheer, and we can do allergy testing. We can do medical allergy testing, which is just skin pricking. We can do functional integrative allergy testing, which is a lot better and looks more deep. But that's looking at physiology, which is controlled by neurology, right? So when we have a sustained sympathetic response, we have a pro-inflammatory immune system. And what we also have is we have literal, actual mechanical tension. We have the nerves and muscles around the ears and the throat are designed to move, and then that moves the fluid through. It's supposed to, as we move our neck, it really has nothing to do with gravity. If you've been told that your kiddo has chronic ear infections because the eustachian tubes are horizontal and later on in life they become more kind of vertically tilted, that's not the cause. That's not really what's going on. God didn't design us wrong and put in horizontal tubes in some kids. No, gravity has little to do with drainage of our immune system. It's really through movement. Movement is life. And as our little ones move their neck, move their jaw, move their spine, it moves things along through the ears, to the nose, to the throat, to the lungs, and it moves it along the lymphatics, which run along these 2 big muscles. That's why kids with torticollis and plagiocephaly really end up in the poor plumber, chronic ear infections, chronic respiratory challenges, because they can't drain that fluid out. It's going to be natural that when we teethe, when we have seasonal changes, when we're exposed to bacteria and other sort of things, the body needs to produce mucus. It needs to produce these things to then capture the not good things and then drain them out. Because the ears, nose, throat, and lymphatics along these neck muscles all drain into the gut. And the gut, the stomach is acidic, so it's going to kill off all the bad guys. And any bad guys who get through the stomach make their way to the intestine, where we're supposed to be loaded, yes, with probiotics and beneficial bacteria, which blast away any of the bad guys that may have made it to that level. But what about this? What about if this same challenge, this sympathetic fight or flight tension, subluxation as we call it, is not only leaving constriction up here, but constriction down here? we are neuromechanically jammed up, our kiddos, from, by the way, this is an adult thing too. If you're chronically congested, allergies, gut issues all the time as an adult, you need the same solution. We're going to wrap this thing up within a minute. But it's drainage. And the nervous system controls the motor system, which controls movement. 90% of our body's well-being has to do with drainage. Ears, nose, throat, lymphatics, gut, gone. And so if any of the neuromechanics of that motor system are jammed up, we're going to have challenges even with a perfect diet, even with supplements, even with vitamin D, even with essential oils, even with taking chemicals and cleaners and toxins out of the house. You're still going to have a kiddo who's jammed up. And then this is where I kind of got off track, but on track. Then the other thing that creates this sensory, emotional, behavioral stuff for these kiddos, if we end up down the traditional medical pathway, is the number one side effect of those steroid-based medications is stimulation, activation, hyperactivity, emotional challenges, because steroids are stimulatory to the sympathetics. I know, it sounds counterproductive, right? In that way, it is. It's overstimulating an overstimulated system and doing the job for it, which is why so many of these kiddos, if we follow that traditional route and they have a lot of medications and then antibiotics get in and mess with the gut, which is where serotonin and dopamine are supposed to be absorbed. So we got this whole perfect storm just inside the kick the sick category, the poor plumber, poor pooper category in and of itself. And that's why all of that goes together. That's why we've phrased it the perfect storm. All of it starts to stack and jam together, and it leads to our 2 and 3 year olds having, and then onward, having all these sensory, emotional, and focus challenges. So the answer to help these kiddos out, if you have exhausted medicine, and I bet you probably 60, 70, 80% of you watching this video, if you're watching our page and others, in our category, we're going to share this with a bunch of our healthy, wellness, natural collaborators as well, and ask them to share this, is you probably exhausted the medical, over-the-counter, maybe even prescription, and you've probably exhausted the nutritional, integrative, functional route. Maybe you've done all the allergy testing, you're living this allergy-free diet, chemicals, cleaners, everything, and yet your kid is still sick more than you want. They're still digestively challenged more than you want. There's still sensory, emotional focus challenges, sleep challenges more than you want. If that's your kiddo, then you got to learn more about this. You got to go all the way back to the root cause. See, inflammation in the gut and the immune system are the trunk of the tree. The nervous system, the central nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system are the roots. To actually talk about root cause, you got to get to neurology, okay? And so what we'd love to have you do, if this is your family and you need help getting all of this unlocked, and you've exhausted medicine, you've exhausted nutrition, you've exhausted supplementation, detoxification, and you nailed it, and all those things, you need to either give us a buzz, give your local pediatric, if you're not local to us, this is on PwC page and our big full doctor platform page, just hit our link up, send us a message, find a pediatric neurologically focused chiropractor near you, and then do one of these two things. Either attend their next workshop. All of the doctors in our network, including at PwC, we do what's called a Raising Healthy Kids Naturally workshop that gives you all the information from this video and more. Or if you're just ready to get your kid better and you know it, just contact, message, find us, give us a buzz, get your kiddo scheduled, have a conversation with a care advocate at your local pediatric, subluxation-centered, neurologically focused chiropractor, because that's where that root cause, meaning that solution you've been searching for, that's very likely where it is. Give a call, get to the workshop, find out if that's the case with your kiddo, and get them unlocked from this poor plumber, poor pooper, jammed up life, and let them live healthy, full, vibrant, rock star, little kid, healthy kid life. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next whiteboard session.